Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. If you're watching the video stream, you can see that we have a full house. It's been a while since we've had this many faces, but like I always say, the more faces, the less I talk and the happier Brandon gets. Speaking of which, let me introduce my co-host today. First off, the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
You know what it is? It's a Wednesday. Time to talk some martial arts.
Martial arts on a Wednesday. You're getting a little smoother, but I think it needs a little work. Also joining us back in the saddle again, back from a couple weeks away. I'm talking about Tim Wheaton, Calf Kick Sports. Tim, how are you?
Man, we're hanging out. I'm excited to be talking about these fights this weekend because there's some good ones. But how are y'all doing?
Doing great. And last but certainly not least, Caqe My IQ's own. I'm talking about Dan Bakley. Dan, how are you?
Doing good.
Just that's Tim. 3 episodes. Can't wait to talk. At this point, Dan, you're just a member of the cast. That's 3 episodes. You're just here now. I don't have to shout you out or nothing. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely talk about both your shows a little bit later, and I definitely got all the show notes for you. But first, let's talk some business. See my legendary tee. Brandon has it on in blue. Dan rocking the fighters first Way of the Fist shirt, and then Tim
rocking that flannel.
At least he's always got an MMA shirt on. He's got the one shirt on. At least one's getting a shout out today via us. Promo codes above. It is Prize Fighter, and you will know why soon. But artofmma.com/shop. Promo code Prize Fighter. Save you 20%. Go help out the show. Support some good quality products and get some dope merchandise in the process. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I also just redesigned the entire website this week. So go check it out. Let me get some feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think. I made it easier to get to all the videos. Right off the bat, you can go to the content. You can go to the shop. Scroll down just a little bit. I have a player that shows all of our episodes, at least the last 10 episodes. So everything's right there, easy to get to. You can get to all the products, all the content, all the old interviews, everything. Just quick, easy. And the website loads a lot faster now too. So hopefully everybody enjoys it. I'm always tweaking it. If you know me, I'm a perfectionist. So that is that. All right, gentlemen. No news this week. I will say, for Brandon's sake, Alistair Overeem seems to be done with MMA for now, going back to the kickboxing ring, going back to his home. He signed with Glory on a multi-fight deal. So Alistair Overeem's next appearance will be in a Glory kickboxing ring, hopefully opposite side of Brandon. No, I'm just kidding. No. There's a huge weight difference there. We're not going to do that to Brandon. I don't think Brandon would back down, but we won't do that to him. I don't want to put him up against one of his heroes. So. But we are getting rid of the news section for the week because we do have a full house, and quite honestly, it would just take way too long. Wasn't too much news really going on other than fight news this week anyway. So we'll get into some of it as we talk about the fights. But I am bringing back something that's pretty relevant right now. Everybody had a chance to, if you didn't see it, you definitely heard about it this weekend. Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather went the distance, kind of disappointing. We all wanted to see him knock his head off. In the aftermath of the fight, I was actually thinking, Floyd lost by decision. Like if you go the distance with Logan Paul, it's like a loss. But I did see a couple replays this week that kind of changed my mind about that. We're not talking about the fight. That's not why we're here for this. But there are a couple times where Floyd caught Logan really good, and you could see him put his arm up, and he held Logan up. I don't know if anybody saw that, but a couple times he held Logan up from falling. And it makes me think that they had a predecided decision to go the distance. It wasn't an exhibition. It wasn't a real fight. We all tuned in to see it. Some of us paid for it. Some of us didn't. Anyway, but the point brings up fighter pay scale, right? Logan Paul got paid more in one night than half these UFC fighters get paid in a year or 2 years or their whole career. Floyd, after pay-per-view numbers, is going to make upwards of $100 million for another event that wasn't even serious. Francis Ngannou comes out afterwards, says, what are we doing wrong? We can talk about the Paulo Costa situation where he basically backed out of a fight that he didn't officially sign for anyway, but it was announced because he wasn't making enough to fight in the main event. We can argue over whether he's worth it or not. That's a whole nother issue because he hasn't fought since the Izzy fight, and he was drunk off wine the night he did fight Izzy. If that's even the real excuse, it's just what he stuck to. I don't know. But I'm going to kick it around the round table. I have my own thoughts on why fighters aren't getting paid properly, but I think what it all comes down to is it's a bigger pool of fighters for the same amount of money, right? Like you have on any given card, a dozen fights, 24 fights. You have weekly events, whereas this week, Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul had 4 fights, and the money mostly went to the main event, and then all the way down to Chad Johnson getting some money, who, by the way, did not look horrible. Chad Johnson did not look horrible. He did get dropped in the 4th round, but he didn't look horrible. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and start with our guest first. Tim, you haven't been on a few weeks. Let's go ahead and start with you. Why do you think there's such a difference between the pay scale in boxing and MMA? And do you think, and I'll kick this around to everybody, do you think there's a fix for it, or is it just the way it's going to be?
There's no new nuanced take that I can give you guys. We've all heard these stories. Like, for as long as we've been in MMA, we've always talked about these pay scales are quite unfair. And now that the numbers are actually coming out due to the class action lawsuit that's currently active, it's worse
and
than
them being a public
imagined.
company now.
And then that's also another interesting point where maybe them being a public company makes the fighter pay somehow worse. But we know that they're making about 14% to 20%, depending if they have a big draw fighting. Whereas like real big boy sports, like the big 4 in the US, all have 50% of revenue, not 50% of profit. They have 50% of revenue due to the union. Now, back even like 15 years ago, the story was we need to get the big names ready for, or we need to get the big names involved so that they can set up a union. And those big names were Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture. After all these years, we're still saying the exact same thing. If they want to build a fighters union, it needs to be the guys at the top, the Cormiers and the John Jones, right? It needs to be the Kamaru Usman. And this is like, I could record this discussion 15 years ago, and I'm still going to have the same talking points today. I can offer you nothing new on this.
Dan?
I think the big thing with the MMA compared to boxing is it's only been around for 20 years. Boxing's been around for over 100 years. It's grown from then until now. You got so many promotions, 4, 5, 6, with so many fighters. You got over 100 something belts. So you got a lot of promotions fighting for different boxers. So they're shelling out a lot of money to corporations just to afford them and then to get them on their side. Whereas MMA, it's only been around basically since the 80s or 90s. And UFC has just started growing the past 10 years to where it went from being a pay-per-view buy to now slowly it's been moving to TV, from like Spike to ESPN. It's been on a couple other ones before, but now it's finally hitting the mainstream, whereas boxing's been on the mainstream forever. It's been dying down and MMA's on the way up, but MMA's still on that building block of building itself into a big time sport. And I think with the fighters there, just like you said, it's going from private to public. That's going to help with the pay scare and seeing what they have. And I think in time it's going to get to that point, but they're going to still have to grow. There's still a growing point, and they're still going to need time to get the faces out, because there's only a few marquee names where you got over 20 boxers that you could probably think of that are marquee names in the sport right now.
Brandon? Prize
man,
fighter, you get paid to fight.
I know. No, I know. It's like, man, I go with so many different ways. Like Tim saying, like even with Dan saying. To me, my thing is, man, it's competition, right? To me, man, I say it's on the fighters too, right? The thing is, right, man, everybody always talks about the UFC. Everybody thinks the UFC is the big sport. But the thing is, though, if you test free agency, like we've learned, man, like if you go, like you see all the people like a Matt Mitrione, who was in the UFC, now is in Bellator. He's saying how he's getting paid more at Bellator. Same thing like a Benson Henderson. All those guys there is like, man, like if you say, all right, UFC, I'm going to leave you and go elsewhere, that's where the money comes from. But the thing is, though, these fighters, they want to get themselves locked into 6-fight, 8-fight deals. Instead, it's like, yo, you should do no more than 4. Like in boxing, again, like Dan said, there are plenty of promotions, right? You got Top Rank, you got PBC, you got Golden Boy, you even got Mayweather. Mayweather has his own promotion, and these guys, again, they know how it is to be the fighter, especially with like Golden Boy and Mayweather. They know how this was like. They know to share the money. The thing is with people like the UFC, because that's really what we're going off of. We're going off the UFC. We're not talking about Bellator. We're not talking about the PFL. We're not talking about Ryzen or One. We're just talking about boxing, and we're talking about UFC fighters. We're not really talking about MMA. And the thing is, though, right, the top guys in MMA, they do get their money, but they could get more money. But the reason why is, though, because again, everybody, like I said, we're like, I always bring it up, right? We're prize fighters, right? Everybody looks out for themselves. They're not looking out for the rest of the fighters. Like if it was like Dan said, right, if we were to do the union, right? I'm sorry, like Tim said, right? We want to do the union where you get more, right? A bigger piece of the pie, and say, you know what? I'm not fine. Like you look at like to me, like John Jones is finally doing it. But the reason why he's doing it is because it's affecting him, because he's not getting the money that he wants. But the thing was like John Jones wasn't doing that for, say,
15 years.
Yeah, but say like he wasn't doing it for like somebody else, like Jorge Masvidal earlier, or like Nate Diaz when they wanted more money. He wasn't talking about them. It's like these guys are only saying, oh, I want more money, but only if it benefits me. If I get mine, I'm cool. If the guy that's on the prelims isn't getting his money, hey, it is what it is. At least with boxers will take that hit, and they will, and it'll just trickle down, and it'll affect everybody. At least that way, everybody's getting the money that they deserve. And also, too, I kind of want to say in boxing, I think not just the main event guys, but I think maybe the main event, the co-main, they all get a piece of that, or they all get a piece of those pay-per-view points. While just in the UFC, when they do pay-per-view, it's just the main event guys.
Yeah, we have that contract. So all of you are right, and at the same time, all of us are wrong, because I'm going to go a step further. It's also our fault why fighters aren't getting paid more, because we have such a hunger for MMA that if they put on an MMA card with 4 fights, like One did a couple times, we're not going to be satisfied. If UFC rolled out with a card every weekend with only 4 fights on it, we'd be like, wait, where's the other 8 fights? We've gotten so saturated with the sport and such a hunger for the sport that they need to put on so many fights, right? So it does put more money in the UFC's pocket, but at the same time, it also brings to the point of respect versus pay. Because, like Brandon said, they don't need to get in the UFC to get paid. Mitrione, all those guys, DJ over in One, Eddie Alvarez for years. So many fighters can go somewhere else and make more money. That's not a question about making more money. But do you get the same notoriety? Brandon and I like talk about wrestling a lot, right? And if you're in WWE, you may not get paid as much, but you're now known worldwide, right? But if you go into AEW or Impact or anywhere else, you might get more money, but do people still know you exist? Benson Henderson, perfect example. He went over to Bellator, lost a couple fights. Ask the casual fan who only watches UFC if they think Benson Henderson still fights at all. To them, he's gone, out of sight, out of mind. So then your value drops. But if you're a UFC fighter, you can go to One, you can go to Bellator, you can go to PFL, Anthony Pettis. You can go down to or go out to Japan or Australia or any other of these promotions. Russia has a lot of upstart, with the M1 and all those guys and the KSW and all that stuff. There's a million promotions to fight for. But because of all those promotions, you're also, the other side of the subject is you're not getting paid because you're in a contract with a promotion. Mayweather has his own business. Everything he does from the last 10 years has been, if not 100% promoted by Mayweather Productions, at least co-promoted by Mayweather Productions. Now, the downside of being a boxer is sometimes you have to fight 20 fights before people know who you are, before you get a shot to make a name for yourself, and you're making pennies on the dollar. Whereas UFC, if you fight in the UFC, you're guaranteed at least $12,000 just to show up, right? Boxers, how many of them have fought in a bingo hall for $100? They just know the reward is if you get to the level of a Floyd Mayweather, you can make $100 to $300 million on one night for 12 rounds. Manny Pacquiao's another guy. MMA fighters, don't fight as long. They may fight 25 minutes at most. It's a more grueling 5-minute rounds. It's definitely a tougher situation than 2-3 minute rounds, depending on exhibition or real boxing. But overall, Boxers can promote themselves. They can market themselves. They are 100% responsible for their money and their income depending on the promoter. Mike Tyson lost hundreds of millions of dollars because of bad promotion. But that doesn't ignore the fact that the money was earned. We've kind of talked about John Jones in a bad light because, yeah, now he's talking about money because we believe he actually might be scared. And if he wants to take that risk of putting his legacy on the line against Francis Ngannou, he wants to be justly compensated for it. That makes more sense. Paul Acosta coming out saying, I need to get paid main event money if you want me to fight a main event. Well, that's not so much since you look like shit your last fight. And even Dana said, you got to come out and prove that you're even worth anything after that last performance. You pulled out of the Whitaker fight. You now pulled out of the potential Cannonier fight. The guy benefiting the most is Kelvin Gastelum because now he's gotten 2 more fights out of the whole deal. I think Tim's right. We're going to be talking about this money issue 10 years from now. But 100% of the problem is because people need to be signed to a promotion. If MMA fighters had the same leverage of every event is promoted as an event versus wanting to be on TV every week, it'd be a different pay scale. But because they want the guaranteed contracts, which, by the way, much like the NFL, their contracts aren't really guaranteed. You may get 8 fights with the UFC, but if you lose 3 of them, they can cut you. They have an out clause if you're not performing. So it's really like you do need to unionize a little bit more because you're getting stuck in these bad contracts, and Dana's the one that benefits. Can you renegotiate if you're a Dustin Poirier or somebody else or a Conor McGregor if you're like raising your market value? Sure. But it takes a long time to get to those levels unless you do what they do. So I'm going to leave it at that. Unfortunately, the pay scale issue is not going to go away. I'm sure we'll be talking about a little bit next week and every other week because it's always an issue. But for the Francis Ngannous of the world, you do deserve more money. But until you guys unionize or end up running your own events, because that's what you're paying for. That's why you're not making as much money. You're giving your money to Dana White, WME, Endeavor to basically promote you, market you, sell your fights, get the broadcast network, and now, like this weekend in Arizona, fill the stands when all you have to do is show up. Now, if you're Conor McGregor and you're getting points on the pay-per-view, yeah, you're going to go out and market that fight because now you're getting $50 million for showing up. Francis Ngannou might not have that contract. Demetrius Johnson forever refused to have points on his contract because he wanted the more guaranteed money up front. That's a choice. If DJ had the points on pay-per-view contract, even though he fought a majority of his main events on Fox, FX, and other like venues other than pay-per-view, he would have made a lot more money in the UFC. That was his choice. It was a trust issue back then when the pay-per-view numbers weren't like they are today. So it is what it is. All right, gentlemen, that was the rant. I hope you people at home enjoyed it a little bit more than the news segment. The news may be coming back. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Leave a comment what you think on the fighter pay scale. I remember Ken Shamrock getting blackballed by the UFC for talking about this 10 years ago. So it's not going away. Could they get paid more? Yes, but it is definitely a different pay scale. I kind of compare it to the NBA and NFL, right? NBA, they got guaranteed contract, but there's only 12 people on a roster, 15 people on a roster. NFL has 53 on a given Sunday, 72 usually on a practice squad and everything else. A lot more people to feed and a shorter schedule. Should they get more pay? Sure. Do they deserve it? Sure. Will it happen? Probably not. All right, guys. Man, I'm really hesitant to go into the results because I had another bad week. But both you guys lost 1-2, so that kept me ahead a little bit. Percentage points at this point. Tim, I don't know why you're laughing. You have a negative record. Mr. Tim Wheaton back to redeem himself this week when we get to our picks. He was 2-3 last time he was on our show. Last week, Brandon was 2-1. Dan Bakley was 2-1. And I was 1-2. Biggie boy kind of hurt my point scale. But let's go ahead and talk about UFC Vegas 28. Break down that event. Like I mentioned, Biggie boy back on top. He redeemed himself. Got a little bit more momentum going on. We'll talk about what's going on with him. What's next for him. We'll talk about a few other highlights on that card. But let's go ahead and jump right into the main event. Brandon, I'm gonna start with you. Biggie boy, Rosenstruck, Jair Rosenstruck got back on the winning trail. Knockout with seconds left seems to be his thing. just like Alistair Overeem in the 5th, but he did it in the 1st this time with Caqe. Let me know your thoughts on that fight.
Hey man, Biggie Boy had things he had to do. He was like, "Yo, I'm not going past the 1st round. I got to get out of here." Hey, he heard those 10 seconds, and then he went off, caught him, finished it, went home, got his party on, whatever it is that he decided to do. I'm saying he looked good. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the guy that we need to see. We can't see the guy who's just waiting around like how he did with Ginn. You know, saying like this guy can strike. You know, he knows how to fight. It's just, hey, don't be like, don't be like Cowboy and just wait around. You know, we just got to get you going in that 1st round. You know, and that's what he did. He did this fight.
And in his 2 losses, Rosenstruck has looked like a deer in headlights. He hasn't looked good at all. In his wins, he's looked phenomenal. What do you think of this fight, Dan?
I thought the big thing that I saw was the fact that he came out strong. He was actually the aggressor. He was the one pushing forward, holding the middle of the octagon, where usually in his fights, he's the one kind of backing up to avoid shots, letting the opponent dictate, and then he just moves back and counters it. But in this fight, he was pushing forward. He was taking his time. He was letting Caqe throw a little bit. Caqe only had 3 shots on him, 2 to the body and 1 leg kick. So he took nothing to the face. So in reality, he could come back a month from now and fight again because he barely took any damage. But at the end, he had a nice move where he had Caqe backing up because he's the one pushing forward. And when he was moving on an angle, he hit him in the body, had him reeling, hit him with that nice left reach that he had, and then finished him with the right, dropped him, and then had 3 more shots on the ground before the ref even stopped. And he was knocked out. And like, this is the guy that you could say probably has one of the best power shots in the heavyweight division, even over Francis. Francis has to put a lot of torque into his punches, where if you looked at Rosenstruck, he barely put anything on it. He was kind of moving on an angle and just tapped him, and then he knocked him down.
Yeah,
So
it's like kickboxing.
if he can just keep staying in the center of the octagon and pressing the opponent, he doesn't have to be the one to go crazy and throw. He just has to move forward, because when he moves backwards, that's when he gets caught in, like he did with Ngannou, and then he just got caught with Gann's volume, and it just caught him off guard.
In fairness, that Ngannou fight, he looked like he was scared for his life. Tim, Caqe didn't like. I expected Caqe to put a lot more pressure on him, and he just didn't at all. What happened? Like, how did like, that was not the Caqe we usually see. Like, Rosenstruck was just like that much better.
Heavyweights are so weird sometimes, you know what I mean? And like, this fight really shows of like, neither of these guys fought any way that they did in the past. And like, what's next? We're like, well, they probably go back
Dr.
to how
Pepper,
they fought.
if you want
Like,
to sponsor.
Cheers to that. But yeah, and then we're kind of thinking for their next fight, do we see this version of them, or do we see the version that we saw in every other fight in their UFC career? The equalizer is always power.
And it's not
it?
about your drink, it's about mine. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
The equalizer is always about power, isn't it? Like, you feel one shot and realize you're in a different game than you thought before. And at heavyweight, I think that's always a little bit more relevant, because a jab like can make a huge difference at that weight class. But yeah, and it's really hard to pick. This was a very much like the UFC needed an event to pass through the minimum finish line, and put some heavyweights on the card. Are either of these guys going to be cracking at that title in the next few years? No, like it's really tough to talk about this fight, honestly.
Well, the title picture, and we can talk about what's next. The title picture is very foggy because it's Ngannou and Lewis. We don't know where Jon Jones stands. Stipe's in the mix to get a rematch at some point. He wants his rematch. And then you got Cyril Gane, Curtis Blades, Volkov, Rosenstrike. And then like in the co-main event, Tabora, which we'll talk about in a second. Personally, I think the next matchup to make sense for Rosenstrike is probably Curtis Blades. He's the only guy I don't see with a matchup. Gane versus Volkov is already signed for later this year. Stipe's waiting. Lewis and Ngannou is probably taking place in August or September. And then the Jon Jones mystery. Don't think Jon Jones is going to fight Rosenstrike. Not even for $80 million. I just don't see him doing it. So at this point, I think it's Curtis Blades. Does anybody else think there's a better matchup for him? Brandon?
I mean, I'm sorry. I was going to say, to me, I can see where you understand. I see where you're coming from with Blades, but it's like he's coming off a loss. But
yeah,
then
but Biggie
so
Boy
is
came off a
Stipe.
loss before this too.
Yeah, but so is Stipe. Stipe's coming off a loss too. I'm like, why not have Stipe and Blades go at it?
That would be a dream match, but Stipe wants that title.
But it's like, man, like we had to talk again about champions and title shots, bro. Like you won it, you lost it. Like you shouldn't get another shot right away. You got to earn it again. You know, like that's what I don't understand. You know, with him, you know, trying to get another shot. It's like, bro, go in there and fight again.
Tim, what were you gonna say?
I was trying to get my lighting right. Like, I don't get it. It's not sunny or anything. I think Rosenstruck, I'm going to be entirely honest, that at his age, he's slowed down quite a bit. He's a very good kickboxer, but it's just he's kind of worn on in years. I don't think there's anybody in front of him in rankings that he can beat. Like, I think he just gets completely beat by everybody in the top 5. And even a lot of people behind him probably beats him as well. I think his career move should kind of do what Andre Arlovsky is doing. Of like, I'll take one fight a year. You guys can pay me to fight some like gatekeeper kid or like some journeyman who's trying to break into the top 10. I think that's a good route for him, but I don't see him beating anyone in front of him.
I mean, Dan, he's 12-2. Like, do you think that's the right path?
I think he should go for Curtis Blades, because if you look at the past, usually a guy trying to move up like that takes on a guy above him that kind of comes off a loss. Blades is coming off a loss. Rosenstruck's coming off a win. Just like you said, Gann's fighting Volkov. Lewis more than likely is going to face Ngannou, and Stipe. He wants that title shot, but I feel like what the UFC is going to wind up doing is giving him the winner of Gane and Volkov, which I think at this time is Gane, which would be a good matchup, and just leaves one guy ahead. You're not going to have Rosenstruck once again fight somebody behind him, because he just did that because Sakai was ranked, I believe, number 8 or 9. So you're not going to have him do that 2 times in a row when 2 of the guys behind him are fighting each other. There's a lot of guys fighting in that division, and the only one that makes sense is Blades. And I think he could beat Blades because Blades is predictable. He's predictable with his takedowns. It's just that he has to stop them. It makes sense for him to do that. Blades is going to want to come back after that bad loss.
I don't think we've ever seen Rosen strike against a wrestler like Blades. I don't know if he could stop those takedowns.
It's debatable, but it's just fact. I think Blades is going to want to get back sooner rather than later, because he's going to dwell even more on that loss. And then Rosenstruck took no damage, so he can come back right away. So the UFC could tell him, hey, we want to book you guys against each other. It gives you guys another fight. And then winner will move up accordingly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I mean, he still has a little bit of a name value, especially in that heavyweight division. So he can still, I don't know if he can main event a pay-per-view, but he can main event a few more fight nights. Maybe he can come back. Like you said, he didn't take no damage. Maybe he can come back in a month or 2 and keep raising his stock before it does get too late for him, because heavyweights can usually fight into their 40s, but he's 33 at this point, and, you know, he needs to get going if he's going to get going. In the co-main event, we saw what we pretty much all expected. All 3 of us expected Tabora to kind of go through Walt Harris. It's unfortunate. Walt Harris is going to be remembered as a decent fighter, but he's never going to be remembered as a great fighter. Unfortunately for him, his tragedy is always going to be the biggest story attached to his name, with everything that happened to his stepdaughter. You know, and God bless all that. And, you know, our prayers still continue to go out to his family. But as a fighter, he looked horrible against Overeem. He looked horrible last Saturday night. Tabora has looked great for a while. He's been getting better and better and better. And that might be another opponent if Rosenstruck wants to go, you know, somewhere around the same rankings, because Tabora is like 1 or 2 below him. But Tabora looked great again. Tabora came out and did what he's supposed to be. Tim, I'll go backwards. I'll start with you. We'll do it snake draft style this time. What'd you think of that fight?
Yeah, Tabora did what he needed to do. I mean, like you said, the Walt Harris story is absolutely heartbreaking. And I feel bad that they keep bringing it up on the broadcast over and over and over again. I kind of feel bad for the guy.
It's the same thing they do with Kat Zingano whenever she fights. They talk about her late husband.
Man, and I feel so bad. Like, oh my God, just keep bringing it up. But I mean, we were just talking about fighters trying to sell themselves, and maybe if you got an angle, maybe if you got a story, use it. That's fine. That's cool if you want to do that. But yeah,
It
Tabura,
adds to the drama, unfortunately.
yeah, that's the thing. He moved up 3 spots in the rankings officially. I guess you want to set him up. Rosenstruck is a fine fight. I like that fight for him, at least. That is, like I just said, someone behind Rosenstruck in the rankings. I don't know how that fight goes, but yeah, probably. That would headline a fight night or something like that, right? What do you think?
And we were also talking about Latifi last week. If he took care of business against Bozer, which he did, questionable decision. I thought Latifi won. I mean, considering Bozer had I don't even know what to call it. It wasn't a poke to the eye for Latifi. It was more like the side of his glove or his thumb caught Latifi in the eye after a punch. It wasn't a eye poke, but it messed up Latifi's eye. Turns out Latifi in the first round fractured a couple bones in his arm. And he still gritted out a split decision win against Bozer. Obviously, he's going to need time, at least 8 weeks, to heal the fractures. Somebody like him might be good for Tabora. What do you think?
I do, because he has that wrestling style. He tries to use his weight to get his opponent down, but he can stand up and trade too, like in that Derek Lewis fight that he had.
I think they're both very similar.
Yeah, he looked pretty good with that. And then Tabora, I was so critical of Walt Harris, and before the fight, I was very critical. I was like, everybody knows what he's going to do. He's going to come in. He's going to come in guns blazing. Tabora's just going to have to weather the storm for a minute. Then he'll tire out. All you got to do is, once you take Harris down, which Tabora can do, it's game over, because he's like a fish out of water on the ground. He doesn't know what to do. And it just took a little bit of time before he finished him, get him in the right position. I think Tabora and Latifi would be very nice. And I think the difference in that compared to like Bozer and Latifi would be, Tabora is a little bit better in several aspects. He's good on the ground. He's good on the feet. And I would actually favor him just because of the fact that I think it could get him on the ground and get to Latifi's back.
Yeah, I agree. Brandon, Walt Harris you said it last week, like, you root for him, but he just doesn't belong in there with the big guys. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, to be honest with you, the only positive thing that came out to me on the broadcast about Walt Harris was that I heard that he changed camps. He left Alabama. He moved on to a different camp. So I was like, hey, that's good for him. Because like I said, I just don't think him being home in that area anyway, Alabama, the people he was training, I don't think it was helping him get better. So me, man, I am a fan of, who do you have in your corner, who's coaching you to help you get better. I mean, to me, man, maybe Walt Harris, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in a week or so we find out that, he got cut, and maybe it might be better for him, and he can go over to Bellator. But Bellator, they got some good heavyweights over there too.
I'll go a step further for you, because you love to mention him. I think he'd be perfect in PFL, in that heavyweight tournament type format. I think something like that would be really good for Walt Harris. UFC is not the picture. It's not.
I mean, hey, I can see him going to PFL. Why not? A chance at $1 million. You get at least like three fights at least in it, or at least 2 a year. Because you got the regular season. But I mean, if that does happen, that means he would have to wait till next year to start up, because the season's already going on. So,
well, I mean, they definitely need some substitutions. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Walt Harris is 37. He's not getting any younger, and he is what he is. He's a knockout or get stopped type fighter. He's got 10 losses now. It's not looking good for Walt Harris. He's got 3 straight. So I think the best thing for his career is if the UFC drops him, because one is desperate for heavyweights. If he wants to take that trip to Japan or Asia or somewhere. PFL, their tournament is perfect for somebody like him. You see, it's, Fabricio Verdum and some of these guys. Bellator, a matchup against somebody like Czech Congo or somebody else is waiting out there for a matchup that hasn't had a quality heavyweight to really bang against in a while. Even somebody like in one, Buller needs somebody to fight now that he knocked off Vera. He wants to be active. I just don't see him staying around the UFC. He's just going to keep getting stopped. The heavyweights there are just a different level. And I don't think especially the grappling and everything else, he needs to be in there with some strikers and some boxers. Maybe he can do a Triller boxing event. Maybe he can fight Logan Paul next. Tim, this part we kind of have to sit you out a little bit because we're going to talk a little bit about some of our individual picks last week, and I'll go ahead and throw myself under the bus first. All three of us got our individual picks wrong last week. I was very high on Jordan Levitt coming off his win over Wyman. I thought he looked fantastic in Dana White's Contender Series. He's looked great on the regional scene. But using Dan's words, fish out of water, what I didn't expect is for him to be put on his back. And Dan said last week, like, if he's on top, he's got a good chance to win. And he did okay standing on his feet. He did okay when he had the takedowns. But when he got put on his back, that was it. It was kind of almost like when Adesanya fought Blachowicz and he was on his back and he wasn't trying to get up. Like, he just kind of laid there and took it. Or actually, a better example, Kevin Holland. We saw Kevin Holland 2 fights. We're talking about Vettori later. We saw Kevin Holland 2 straight fights where he just kind of sit there and laid on his back and kind of like did the whole ear smack thing, but he wasn't really trying to get up. That was exactly what Jordan Levitt did. And that's why he got his first loss. Payless looked good enough. He didn't do anything special. And I don't know if anybody would really disagree with that analysis. Anybody else got anything to add to that fight? Nope. Okay, cool. Dan, you were also wrong, though, as you were the first to call me out for being wrong on Jordan Levitt. I can be the first to call you out on being wrong on Beza. I know I'm not the first. I saw your show this week. You kind of took the bullet. I made sure to leave a comment, though, when I saw it. But Beza, Ponzinibbio was one of those guys who came out really hot, was injured, and then COVID, and then finally got back in the cage and lost. But he looked a little bit like himself against Beza. What you think?
Yeah, he did. It took like a round and a half for him to look that way. He was getting eaten alive by those leg kicks in the first round. He probably took at least 15 to 20 in that round. But then once he got comfortable, he started using that jab, and then Beza just had no answer for it. He just kept using the jab, and then he himself started to incorporate a little bit of leg kicks, and his were more effective. Like, he did that one. He almost tripped him just with a leg kick, and he fell down, and then he made, in the third round, he made Beza hobble for the rest of the round with the leg kick. He was just looking comfortable. He looked a little bit faster. Beza started to gas out. Ponzinibbio had a little bit better gas tank on him, and he just looked better in that last round. I thought Beza was going to sneak the third round, and then the last minute, Ponzinibbio came back with the jab again and with the leg kick, and then just stole the round with the last minute.
Yeah, he just looked overall, he looked a lot more comfortable than he did the first time he was back in the cage. Brandon, king of the lady fighters, you picked Lipski because you thought she could stay on the feet, but De La Rosa never let her stay on the feet. Talking about a fish out of water, same thing. Lipski on her back had no answer for De La Rosa. What happened?
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, when they were standing, Lipski was looking good, but then, like, I want to say, like, in the first round, when Montana was trying to take her down, she had first, I think she had stopped like the first one, but then the second one came and she wasn't able to stop it. But then, though, when she was on the ground, she seemed like she was calm and cool. I was like, all right, she knows what she's doing, because she was like, trying to maybe get her guard, hold her there, just kind of lock her down. And I thought, and I just thought she was about to do a sweep or something, but no, she was just standing there. Next, she was catching those elbows. She got cut open, and I really just want to say, man, she just never got going. Like, I mean, the first part of the round, she came out strong, but maybe we maybe touch her with about like 2 or 3 punches, and then boom, she would get taken down, and that was just a fight, and then boom, she got stopped. So I mean, it was a 50-50 pick for me, but I kind of was just gonna root for Lipski. I just thought she was just gonna maybe get the stoppage, but she didn't do it. So kudos to Montana for getting that W.
Tim, any fights stand out to you on that card that we didn't talk about yet?
I do like talking about Ilir Latifi a little bit, because I like that he's a little dwarf man and he's doing pretty well. That's it. That's all I want to say. Thanks. I'll see you guys later. See you guys next week.
Tim, we bring you on for your analytic expertise, and there it is. Calf Kick Sports. Make sure you check out his 5-second rant. No, he is very long-winded, as I'm sure you will see when we get to breaking down the fights. Only other thing I'll mention on the card, Josko Todorovic was riding super high. And then the last couple fights, he has just looked a totally different fighter. Rodriguez beat him to every angle, every possible situation. So there's that. And then also, I'm interested to see what's next for Dolides and Staropoli. Neither one was overly impressive, but both at the same time did what they needed to do. And then, of course, Dolides got the decision. 30-27 each way is what I kind of meant to say. The Dolides did what he had to do. But he didn't really overly impress me. So being that high up on the card, it kind of makes me wonder what's next for either one of those guys. Veteran Trinaldo took the loss in which was just a messy fight against Salikov with the fouls and the other stuff going on. It was just kind of a weird fight. So that's that. Anything else you guys got to add to this card before we take off and make some picks?
It just sucks for Mason Jones, who was dominating that fight, to get a no contest because he got poked in the eye. Yeah.
Also, the Tom Breeze fight versus Arroyo got canceled right before the main event or the main card due to Breeze having a medical situation. It could have been mental. They talk about his anxiety and some other stuff, but that has not been come out publicly, so I don't want to go there. Coming up this week, we'll talk about some things coming up before we jump into our picks. We got a lot of picks to make, so we'll try to roll through them as fast as we can. But coming up this week, an event that we won't really talk about. One has Full Blast 2. Monkopech versus Mahmoudi is a Muay Thai fight in the main event. They got a couple MMA fights and a kickboxing fight on there. So check that out Friday, June 11th. And then also Friday as well, Invicta is back with an 8-woman atom weight tournament. So some stuff to check out this week other than the big guys and girls going at it. Speaking of which, other fight changes. We're going to start off with PFL 4. Obviously, the debut of Carissa Shields is the big deal, but it's also kind of like their second round of fights for the 155-pound division as well. But Anthony Pettis will not be among them. He got sick this week. Like Dan mentioned off air, he looked a little bad before the weigh-ins, but he was definitely sick after the weigh-ins. So Anthony Pettis will be moved to the 26th. They're switching opponents, Nathan Schultes and versus Alex Martinez. And then Pettis will come back and fight Schultes' original opponent, Odenstoff, on the 26th. So that's what they're going to do with that. Also, hyping up the event a little bit before we get into our picks. Carissa Shields basically just roasted the shit out of Brittany Elkins. Elkins went from saying she was going to finish Shields in 15 seconds to now saying, she just wants to pull an upset and she wants to be competitive. Shields called her out on that. Of course, Shields has been training with Jackson Wink now for probably like 6 or 7 months. So she's been going hard this whole time. Let's go ahead and jump into that card, guys. PFL 4, it's going to be on ESPN Plus as well as ESPN 2 later in the night for the main card. Main event, Carissa Shields, Brittany Elkin. Brandon, you're the king of the lady fighters. What can we expect out of Carissa Shields in her debut? Who you picking?
Man. So I mean, we know Carissa Shields' hands should be on fire. We should have no questions about that.
Say, if you pick Brittany Elkin, we may need a new co-host next week.
I don't know, man, dude. I'm going back and forth, like legit. Like, dude, this is why I'll tell you why. I'm really am leaning towards Brittany Elkin. All right, so Brittany Elkin, like she was a 500 fighter, but yeah, she has lost her last 3
500.
fights.
She's 3-6.
Yeah, no, that's what I just said. As I said, she was 3-3, but then she just lost her last 3 fights, so now she is 3-6. But the thing is, though, Brittany Elkin basically has been doing a lot of jiu-jitsu matches, jiu-jitsu tournaments. So the things like she's really been working on her ground game. So of course it's gonna be that her job. What she's gonna try to do is try to take Shields down and try to get a submission. The thing is, though, we just don't know what Shields' wrestling takedown is like, what her jiu-jitsu is like. Like, of course, like I said, all fights start standing up. Remember, it's just like how I thought Lipsky and Montana were gonna be, and I was wrong with that. So that's why I'm like really am leaning towards Brittany Elkins to really get the upset, because it's like,
are you making that pick?
Relax, man. I'm not done talking, man. Let me finish. So like you said, it's leaning towards Elkins getting the upset. So but I'm gonna be a ride or die. I'm gonna rock with Shields. I just think he's gonna get the job done. Maybe she'll be like Derek Lewis and she's gonna catch him with an uppercut.
How'd you go all the way around and end up back on Shields anyway?
Because Shields is training at Jackson Winks. She got Holly Holm on her side. Michelle Watterson, who got a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I'm sure they've been working takedowns and everything.
Ladies
like
and gentlemen, that is peer pressure right there. Brandon
no,
just
it's
caved
not.
into peer pressure right there. He saw all three of our faces when he was about to pick Elkin. Dan, you look like you're about to say something. Go ahead and make your pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Shields on this one. Like I was thinking about Elkin because she has the background. This is Shields' debut, but when I was listening to the media day and Elkins was saying that up until April she wasn't even training on the regular because she had a job. She wasn't sure she was going to fight again, so she was working in right in my backyard, Philadelphia, at 2300 Arena, just opening the doors for people, doing that. And then she got the call that, hey, do you want to fight with us? She was like, okay, yeah. And of course, she has the 3-6 record. But I like the fact that Shields is training at Jackson Wink. She said that she's been picking Holly Holm and John Jones' brain. She's going to the right people. You look at Holly Holm, she has the boxing background and then transitioned over to MMA as well. So she's talking to the right person who went through that same situation, just not on the same level. And she's been training in all different aspects of MMA. She made a point, yeah, I was a boxer, but now I'm trying to train and see what works best for me. And I'm trying to put all this together to form one good move set. And I feel like she can, if she can withstand getting taken down and keep the fight up, she, of course, she has a punching chance of winning because she has the hands, and I think she can knock out Elkin. And I think she's going to do that.
Tim, Elkin is the same female they brought when it was time to debut another superstar, Kayla Harrison. I would love to hear the analytic breakdown of this one. Who's your pick?
I'm gonna play off what Brandon was talking about, honestly. Of like, you know
God,
what?
Y'all are driving me crazy.
We don't know how good Clarissa was. No, and last time I was here, I was like, I'm super pumped for Clarissa. I really hope like she has a great career. But legitimately, we don't entirely know.
Y'all gonna make me switch this Dr. Pepper for some whiskey, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I hope she does get taken down because to really develop your wrestling and jiu-jitsu, you need to spend you need to spend a lot of time in the cage getting better at that. So I hope she does get taken down. I am picking Clarissa Shields to win. I think she gets it done by decision. However, I will say, Brittany Elkins, I got her as high as plus 250. If you're looking for an upset pick, that's not the worst bet in the world, honestly.
You know what? I was going to give you a whole reason why, but Shields, done. That's my pick.
Done.
Ray Sefo ain't no dummy. Ray Sefo's been promoting for quite a while, and he ain't going to put his new superstar at risk. They chose Brittany Elkin fresh off ushering at 2300 Arena, like Dan said, for a reason. She'll put on a good show. Elkins will eventually get knocked out or something. But also, she's also got to remember, Krista Shields also been training with Arlene Blenkow too. So she's gotten a little bit of grappling with her as well, not just Holly Holm and the kickboxing. So, and John Jones wrestling as well. You know, Michelle Watterson and all those people over at Jackson Wink. So.
If we have a scale, so one side is James Toney and the other side is Holly Holm. Where is Clarissa Shields going to be after this fight?
Slightly above the middle towards Holly Holm. I mean, James Toney didn't do any MMA training. He just thought, I'm a kick-ass boxer. I'm going to come in here and, excuse my language, but fuck you up.
He took it on a month and a half notice.
Yeah, and he had done a couple other MMA exhibition things, and he thought this is easy. Then he stepped in with a real guy, Randy Vettori. And Randy just played with him. So I put it, she's not Holly Holm. Holly Holm wasn't Holly Holm when she first started either. But she's got that experience, and she's got somebody like that in her corner. She's got the potential to be decent. Potential is everything in this sport. We'll see what happens on the 10th, but see what happens. One of the things I love about the way PFL, Bellator, and UFC have lined up this week is they all have their own night, and nobody is competing with each other. So, Dan, I haven't started with you. I'm going to start with you this time. Nathan Schulte's in. They switched up opponents. He's got Alex Martinez now. Who's your pick in that fight?
I'm going to go with Nathan Schultz. I think he's going to be hungry. He came in, got upset by Marcin Held. He's going to want to get that bad taste out of his mouth. He was originally supposed to fight, of course, one guy, that Russian. He had to back out. And then he was supposed to fight Manfredo, a good friend of his, until Pettis backed out due to being sick. So then they paired him up with Manfredo. And now Schultz is paired up with Martinez. So he's going to be going up against the Taekwondo fighter now. I think it matches up well for him because I think he's going to want to go in strong. He's going to go in for the knockout, where I feel like, just in my opinion, Martinez, known with who he was going up against, is going to train to try and get a decision win.
Tim, Martinez didn't look great against Rabsov the last fight, split decision win. Who you got in this fight?
I got Schulte. Similar reasons. I think he was coming in on a lot of hype. I think he's the 2-time PFL champion. So he's coming in on a lot of hype, and then he lost one fight. And now his stock has absolutely plummeted because of it. But I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think he's an extremely talented fighter. Martinez is a young up-and-comer. He's had 8 fights, but he's had like 25 amateur fights or something like that. So he does have a little bit of experience, but I'm going to pick Schulte by decision in this one. I think he's going to get it done in this one.
Brandon, in Schulte's win to win the championship in 2019, he beat Razhabov pretty easily. Thank you, Tim. Versus the same guy that Martinez had to get a split decision. Do you see Schulte struggling in this one, or do you think Schulte's going to win too?
I am picking Schulte as well. The reason being, it's kind of really all what really Tim was saying was that he was a 2-time champ. He had that pressure. Could he three-peat? But he came in, took the L from Marcin Helm. He was about to fight his friend. Now, though, he doesn't have to fight his friend anymore. So I think that takes a little bit of relief on him. Now he's like, you know what? I can go in here and I can just mess this dude up now. I don't have to worry about hurting my friend because I don't know this guy. So now I'm just going to go in and let people know that let them know that there's a reason why I was a 2-time champ. And I think he's going to get the finish. And he's going to come out gangbusters.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. And I just think Schulte needs this. I think he needs it. I think he's going to be hungrier. I think, if Martinez loses this fight, he probably, maybe, depending on what happens with people's health-wise and Pettis and everybody else, could still find himself in the playoffs because he has a split decision win. He'll need a little help, but, he can't get knocked out in this fight. But at the same time, Schulte, he needs this. He needs to come out hungry. He needs those 6 points. He needs to get a finish if he wants to defend his crown for a third time. So I'm picking Schulte as well. We won't really talk about him much because we're going to move on, but there's, this card's still got a lot of talent on it. Clay Collard, who beat Anthony Pettis, is on this card. Tyler Diamond, who's one of Brandon's favorites, is on this card. Bubba Jenkins versus Bobby Maffei is on this card. Lance Palmer is on this card. Marcin Held is on this card. And Marcin Held versus Alban Mercier, that is going to be one of the fights of the night. I'm definitely looking forward to that on the prelims. And, of course, Long Island MMA. We always talk about the connection with Sergio. Long Island MMA, Chris Wade, back for again. He got a win the last time. He's fighting Ospinov in the opener of the prelims this week. And also, Razhabov, who we were just talking about in the finals last year, he's on this card as well against Aliyev. So PFL 4, bringing it as usual. Last week we mentioned we would talk about the PFL schedule, but I'm actually not going to do that because the reason being, not just COVID, right? You have injuries. You have a million reasons why these fights fall apart. For instance, Fabricio Verdum, not medically cleared for a PFL 6. So that throws their whole heavyweight schedule in flux. So we're just going to kind of take things as they come. Like I said, PFL 6 is already messed up because Verdum is out. Muhammad Usman's out. He got hurt during training. Verdum's not cleared from the damage he took last fight when he sat there and just kind of let, Ferreira just kind of rain down on him, whether he thought he tapped or not. Like we always say, defend yourself at all times. So we're going to kind of take PFL week to week just because the schedule can change so much and they run so much action. So we'll definitely get into everything when we're talking about the cards, but that we'll talk about. All right, guys, you ready to talk about some Bellator? Bellator 260, once again on the 11th, the same day as Invicta and as One. But Bellator 260, probably the bigger event, has Douglas Lima defending his title against the undefeated 25-0 Amosov. Tim, I'll go ahead and start with you. Who you got in that fight and why?
I really wanted to hype up Douglas Lima in the past, like before his Gegard fight, before all this other stuff. I really wanted to be like, Douglas Lima is one of these guys outside the UFC that needs to get in the UFC. And then every time he fights, he goes out there and makes sure that is entirely wrong. I want to like Douglas Lima, but he never fights in a way that makes me just like, oh, you're so good sometimes, but why aren't you good all the time? So I'm going to pick the multi-time combat Sambo world champion in Amosov. Similarly, I don't know that he always fights up to his potential. Sometimes he's a little bit on cruise control, but he's completely outpointing the fighters most of the time. So I am going to pick Amosov in this fight.
Dan?
I'm going to go with Amosov too. He's an undefeated fighter. I do like Lima, of course. He's been a champion. He's a very good striker. He can knock guys out. He will have the speed in this contest, but it's just hard to fight against a guy with a combat Sambo background. He has elite wrestling. He uses his jab, and then he also has kickboxing, which threw me for a loop to add with the combat Sambo. And I think it's just going to be too much for Lima to handle because he's going to be the one getting pushed back, I feel like. And whenever that happens, that doesn't bode well for a fighter going up against a guy like Amosov. And I think he's going to get him. He's going to ragdoll him, and he's going to get the decision victory.
Brandon?
Man, you guys make good points for Amosov. Like, I was thinking about it too. Like, remember when Douglas Lima fought Rory McDonald? You know, he lost to him. You know, Amosov is kind of really similar to Rory McDonald. He might maybe be a little bit better.
Lima beat Rory. Oh, you're talking about the first fight.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the first fight. The thing is, like, Lima does well the second time around with people. The first time around, he usually takes the L. Amosov is like same thing happened with Koreshkov? Yeah, exactly. You know, he lost him the first time, then the second time around, he beat him. So the thing is, like, it's all telling me to go with Amosov, but I'm gonna believe in Douglas Lima. I'm gonna say, and still, I think he's gonna get the job done. We'll go from there.
I'm going with Lima because he has something to prove. He didn't look good against Mousasi, his last fight out. Mousasi just dominated him. It was up a weight class, but, you know, Lima's one of those guys, like you said, he bounces back. When people think he's down, he comes back to prove himself. And Amosov, for as great as he is, didn't look that great against Logan Storley. When he fought Logan Storley in November, it was a split decision win. And while he did win that fight, it wasn't really a question in my mind that he won the fight. Storley brought it to him. And enough to win at least one of the judges' scorecards. And honestly, I think it was the second round, maybe the first round. Storley was winning that fight, like dominating. And then Amosov came out the third round and I think won the fight. But it wasn't like open and shut. Here's this undefeated fighter. Let's bow down to him. Now, Logan Storley's a tough guy. But I'll go back to even further. Gerald Harris, a couple years ago, Gerald Harris is on the twilight of his career. And he barely beat him by a decision. That's somebody he should have stopped. Eric Silva's been knocked out a bunch of times, went to a decision. Dave Rickles, he caught in a choke. But Ed Ruth is another guy, probably should have finished if he's such a great finisher. You know, out of 25 wins, he's got 19 stoppages, 10 submissions, 9 KOs, went to decision. Since he stepped up in competition to go to Bellator, most of his fights have gone to decision, minus the TKO against Lemminger, because that was a doctor stoppage. I think Lima has more to prove, and I think Lima's going to come out and show why he's one of the best welterweights in the entire world. And I think Lima's going to – that's my pick in this one. In the co-main, Paul Daly, I'm retired. I'm back. You paid me more money. Thank you. I'll fight at a catchweight. Paul Daly's back in action against Jason Jackson. Brandon, I'll start with you this time. Who you got?
Jason Jackson, like how we talking about with Douglas Lima, I think he just has more to prove, man. He wants this. I feel like Paul Daly to me, like you can see it. This guy does not want to really fight at 170. He's trying to fight at 175. His last fight was at 175. This fight's at 175. He's trying to make a 175 division in Bellator, and nobody's picking up on it. That's what he's trying to do. All right, Jason Jackson trying to go in. I know. He's getting away with it. But saying, I just think Jason Jackson is the better overall fighter. We all know Paul Daly can stand up. His ground game is still suspect. I mean, even though he did do like 1 or 2 takedowns on like MVP, but he didn't do much still with that. Jason Jackson is the better overall fighter. I think Jason Jackson is going to get his hand raised.
Dan?
Yeah, I was about to say, it seems like he's fighting at catch weight every bout now in Bellator. This is his third time.
It's like, you
doing
want me to
catch
keep
weight.
fighting? I'm not cutting weight no more.
Yeah, and he's always going to have that chance to finish opponent with that power shot. But I just feel like he's not going to get a chance to, because I feel like Jackson's going to keep him at arm's length. He's going to either fight from range or he's going to take him down. And because I think Paul Derry will be weak against that. He's going to take him down, wear him out, and then just either cruise to decision victory, or I could see Jason Jackson winning by submission.
Tim?
I totally co-sign with what you guys are on. Jason Jackson is the kind of fighter that I really like. He's got tight, straight line, 1-2s, and a low kick, just stuff that you absolutely love to see. I think he outpoints Paul Daly from range and en route to a decision.
I like that Paul Daly's not afraid to fight a fighter that can beat him. I'll give him that much credit. Towards the end of your career, you're kind of winding down. You might want to take a couple wins and get the easy way out, especially since he's pretty much only fighting for the payday at this point. But that said, I picked Jason Jackson against Benson Henderson, and I proved everybody wrong. It was one of the few times I was right against Brandon and Sergio. And then I picked against him against Gracie because I thought Jason Jackson wouldn't do good on the ground. He survived Gracie and won that fight looking really good. Gracie had his moments, but Jackson was controlling that fight. I struggle with the fact that I think Paul Daly has knockout power. And Jackson is not afraid to mix it up with you. But the leg kicks, the striking from a distance, I'm going to go and piggyback on you guys. I'm going to take Jackson. But I think this fight could be more competitive than people think. Paul Daly's looked really good his last couple fights. It's not just kind of riding off. A couple other fights to keep an eye on before we go ahead and hop over to the big card. Aaron Pico's back in action against Aiden Lee. Vanessa Porto, we were just talking about her, the return of Invicta. Now they replaced her. Well, she's still in action. She's fighting Bellator. She's in action against Joanne this week. Speaking of Lemminger, he's back in action against DeMarcus Jackson. Kyle Crutchmer, 6-1. He finally lost his first fight. He's going against another undefeated fighter in Chuck Ellie. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. And then Nick Newell, another veteran, also in action. And also on the very first prelim, there's a guy named Alex Polizzi fighting against Gustavo Trulio. I've seen him fight a couple times on the regional scene. I think you should keep an eye on him. That's one of my personal picks to keep an eye on. Gentlemen, you ready to go ahead and hop over and talk about the main card this weekend?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
All right. Nice excitement from the crowd. And Brandon just rubbed his ears like, whatever. I'm excited. Let's go ahead and talk about it. UFC 263. Basically 3 main events. We're going to talk about all 3 of the top fights on that card and then also make our picks. Go ahead. We're going to start with the main event. Rematch of the split decision win that Adesanya had against Vettori on his way to the top. Vettori was ready to fight when Adesanya was ready to fight, and Robert Whittaker wasn't. So here we are. Vettori getting his rematch. They've been kind of chippy all week. Vettori going as far as to say, "Where's my belt?" Adesanya said, "What belt?" He said, "Your belt. It's going to be my belt." And then he called him his friend, and Adesanya's like, "I'm not your friend." So he's clearly getting under Adesanya's skin a little bit. Adesanya coming off his first ever loss against Jan Blachowicz. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. What can we expect from this fight? What is up with Izzy coming off his first ever loss? And can Vettori, who arguably some people thought he won that first fight against Adesanya, what's going to happen in this rematch?
And still, Style Bender getting that W, getting his hand raised. Usually with Adesanya, if you follow his kickboxing career, usually right, if he has a bad performance, actually, or even in his MMA, right, if he has a bad performance, he usually bounces back with a good performance. So his last fight, he had a bad one, just like how we talked about with Douglas Lima. He usually bounces back. I mean, we all know that Vettori, he's gonna try to take him down again, right? We're gonna say that he was the wrestler because we saw the last fight with Blachowicz. The thing was though that he tried to take Izzy down the last time they fought. He really didn't have that much success with it. I think Izzy has a 82% takedown defense. And then anyway, when Vettori did kind of win the grappling exchanges, he didn't really do much when he was controlling them. He didn't do any damage. He didn't do anything like that. hence why Izzy won that fight. And I just think the same thing will either happen this time, or better yet, I think Vettori's going to come in with his head down and he's going to get caught with a shot like how Robert Whittaker did, and it's going to be easy work for Izzy. I maybe say knockout, second round, third round.
Tim?
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely got Israel in this fight for a few different reasons. I actually do believe that Marvin Vettori has the right tools to beat Israel Adesanya, but his tools just aren't sharp enough. He's going to be doing all the right things that you should be doing in a southpaw versus orthodox matchup, but he's just not good enough to beat him, okay? And where most fighters really struggle against Israel is on the entries, right? We saw a guy like Paulo Costa couldn't get inside at all. And a guy like Robert Whittaker actually got in through he managed to get past his entries were fine. And then he got beat in the exchange. Israel Adesanya has more layers to his defense. He has more layers to his offense. What you're going to see Marvin Vettori do is mainly what you should always be doing in a southpaw match, is trying to control the lead hand. You have your foot outside and trying to land the cross. That's very normal. I just think Israel Adesanya is going to absolutely, this is his match. The one weird factor that we always see is Israel fights southpaws really weirdly. His worst performances are consistently southpaws. These have been Marvin Vettori, Anderson Silva, and Yoel Romero. For whatever reason, I don't entirely know, but he just kind of fights southpaws a little bit awkwardly. So Marvin Vettori, like I said, has the right tools of someone that you would want if you're fighting Israel. His tools just aren't sharp enough. Now, I do like that you mentioned the takedown in the third round, because Marvin Vettori has been practicing his takedowns as he has with Kevin Holland. They're mostly inside trip takedowns. The one that he got on Israel, he kept trying the inside trip and it didn't work. He then went to the second chain of that takedown. So he tried the inside trip, didn't work, and then went to the second stage, and that's when he got Israel. That was actually really good. Marvin's never done that ever again in his entire MMA career. And like you guys said, so when he is on the ground, Marvin Vettori really doesn't pass guard or have anything. Israel was able to wall walk and get back to his feet. So for any number of reasons, I actually think this is a bad fight for Marvin. He should have polished up his game a little bit more. I think he should have waited a couple of years and just really polished what he had, because you're going to lose 2 in a row to this guy. You're not going to get back. But yeah, I can't see Israel losing this one. I think this is a great fight for him to rebound on, honestly.
Dan?
Just go back to the Vettori fight against Holland. He did take him down, but when they were both standing up trading, usually Holland was having the better of the two successful with the shots. And what Adesanya is going to do is he's going to defend the takedown well, and he's going to keep the fight standing. Of course, with his kickboxing, he's going to try and use the range. He likes to put his hand up to keep him at arm's length. He's really well with those leg kicks. And one thing that we've noticed with Marvin Vettori is he doesn't check those. He takes a lot of damage from guys that throw leg kicks. And that's what Adesanya is going to do all day. He's just going to keep on kicking him in the front lead foot of Vettori, because Vettori is going to try and box him. So he's going to try and lean forward at him with the strikes, and being on the opposite side, being the southpaw, it's going to be susceptible to it. But those are going to kill him in time. And then I love how Adesanya always fakes out with his punches. He acts like he's going to punch you with his left hand, and then he goes back and kicks you with the right foot. He did it to Paulo Costa. He did it to Whittaker. He tries to use all these different combinations that fool you, and I feel like he's going to wind up catching him, and he's going to beat Vettori with the third round knockout by leg kick.
Perfect. All right. You know how I was looking at Brandon like he was crazy in the Clarissa Shields thing?
Don't do it, Mike. No.
You all just certify why I think Vettori is going to win this fight.
Oh my goodness.
So let's look at the facts. A couple things. Obviously this is an opinion situation, but let's look at the facts. Vettori's never been stopped. 4 losses, never been stopped. 21 fights. You all are talking about, is he stopping him late in the third round, whatever, second round. Vettori's never been stopped. He mostly grinds stuff out to a submission or decision. And the reason why I'm not worried about his stand-up isn't the last fight against Kevin Holland. It's how he did against Jack Hermanson the fight before that, where he looked fantastic on his feet. We kept expecting that to be a grappling fight, and they were both kind of banging it out. Marvin Vettori, and also the reason why I picked Vettori is because of the Blachowicz fight. People are forgetting, Izzy could bounce back, but people are forgetting nobody's exposed Izzy that way. Nobody's exposed the roadmap on how to beat him. And everybody remembers Tim pointed it out. The third round is when Vettori got that takedown. The third round is what made that fight questionable about who won the fight, because you could go back and forth with a couple of the first round, second round. The third round, Vettori clearly won, and it made everybody wonder who won that fight. This is a 5-round fight. What happened with Izzy in the third, fourth, and fifth round against Blachowicz? He wore down, and he lit Blachowicz up a couple times in the first couple rounds. But what happened as the fight went on? The later it got, the slower Izzy got. You can look at the Yoel Romero fight. The later it got, the slower Izzy got. Now, that fight didn't have a lot of action to begin with because Romero didn't want to engage. But it still goes to the point was when you can drag Izzy past the first couple rounds, he gets slow. And he gets a little bit worn down. I don't know if it's an adrenaline dump because he goes so hard to try to knock you out the first couple rounds like he did with Whitaker and everybody else. But Vettori's not going anywhere. He's going to stand there. He can look as horrible as he wants the first couple rounds. He's going to stand there and take everything Izzy has to offer. He's going to look horrible after the fight like he just got beat up. But if he can point out rounds 3, 4, and 5 via a takedown like he did against Holland, where he can just lay on you whether he's doing stuff or not. Same thing Blachowicz did where he's kind of just laid on him. And the way they're dishing out 10-8 rounds nowadays, who knows? I see a new champion because I think Vettori can take the damage and do what he needs to do. I don't think he's going to dominate Izzy by any means, but I think he's going to outpoint him, and I think we're going to have a new champion on Saturday night. I think the roadmap is there. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to offer the rebuttal of like...
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, Vettori, he...
But not 30 minutes this time.
Yeah, sorry. We got 4 guys. I know. I was thinking about... That's why I was like, I'll come back to this point never again. But now we're back into it. Yeah, I think Blachowicz kind of did show the roadmap of like, you got to kick out the legs, mix up the hands, mix and clinch and takedown. And that is the roadmap. The thing is like, I don't know that Vettori's the right guy. In 400 strikes since he's fought Israel, he's thrown 8 leg kicks and has defended 0 leg kicks in that time. So I don't entirely know that he's the guy, but you mentioned Hermansson, and Hermansson has one layer to his defense. So the cross kept landing on Vettori because he does the answering the phone defense, which isn't great in mixed martial arts. You got to move your feet and stuff like that. Yeah. However, I don't want to argue about it too much, but how do you see, if you see Vettori winning the championship, next in line is Robert Whitaker. How do you see? I think
Whitaker would destroy Vettori.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Because I got to get in on this too, right? Mike, like you keep bringing up Izzy's last fight, right? And the thing's like sometimes, hey man, yo,
go ahead,
what?
Brandon.
I'm the co-host, man. I'm the co-host of this show, baby. I stick it to time, all right? So the thing is, man,
I don't know why Brandon just got muted.
Like,
but go ahead.
I'm saying, man, you keep forgetting sometimes about these weight classes. You gotta think about, man, like, dude, Blachowicz is a way bigger guy, so he can wear down Izzy. Vettori is like is like the same size, or really, man, he might really be smaller than Adesanya. And also, too, where they were when they fought each other, who have they fought after?
One of us
his best fight, Vettori's best fight is Jack Hermansson. While Adesanya has Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero, 4-1. Adesanya has fought better people.
You're forgetting one.
He has gotten better. Vettori has gotten better, but he hasn't had the same competition. And you think Whitaker's going to smoke Vettori? That's what you said. Smoke. You said destroy. It's not going to be a decision. Come on,
well,
Mike.
You're forgetting one important name. He's fought Adesanya.
But he didn't beat Adesanya.
But it was close. And Tim keeps talking about the tools, but do the tools have to be that sharp if the roadmap is that clear? That's where we're going to find out on Saturday night. There's a reason why.
I can't wait for you to take this L. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Brandon, who's in first place on the picks?
Exactly. You know what? And it was going to be me after Saturday.
But who's who's first place right now?
By two points. That's because some fights didn't happen for you.
63.75 to 63.41. It's razor thin, but I'm still the lead horse. Okay.
That's because some of your fights didn't happen. If your fights would have happened, maybe it would have been a different story.
Well, okay, I'll stop picking Angela Hill fights, okay? All right, let's move on to the co-main before this really is a 2-hour episode. Y'all gonna make me start having to edit these shows. Jesus Christ. I'm about to cut out me talking. That's the worst part. I'm actually most excited more than the main event. I'm really excited for this rematch. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno in the first fight proved he could take everything Deiveson Figueiredo had to offer. Now, hindsight's 20/20. Figueiredo might have been having food poisoning. Figueiredo was obviously, both of them had a quick weight cut turnaround from the fight before that, just weeks before. There was a lot going into that. No excuses come this Saturday. Both of them are completely healthy. Both of them, as of right now, we'll see on come the weight scales later this week. But both of them right now seem to be heading towards weight, perfectly fine. No excuses. I'm going to go ahead and kick this one off because I'm so excited. I think Deiveson Figueiredo comes out and he not only wins this fight, I think he finishes them within 3 rounds. Those power shots that Moreno just never avoided that first fight. If Figueiredo's a little bit more healthier and rested, those power shots, I think, finish Moreno unless he just adjusts something in his thing. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and start with you this time because you're the only one that didn't give me a rebuttal of why I was wrong about Vettori. Dan, go ahead and tell me who's going to win Figueiredo versus Moreno too.
I'm probably going to be the loner. I'm going to go with Moreno. I know
Alex Soto at home somewhere screaming his head off. Okay.
I know Figueiredo has that knockout power, but if you saw the first fight, he didn't knock him out. Figueiredo came on strong. When I previewed that one, I said the longer the fight goes, the better it is for Moreno because Figueiredo can tire out. You wouldn't know it because you're finishing guys so fast. Moreno probably has one of the best chins in that division. He's never been finished. The only times he lost were by this decision. I think in a 5-round fight, I think it's going to favor him the longer it goes. I think he's going to take pressure early. I think round 1 will go Figueiredo, but I think after that, Moreno's going to get involved with this boxing. He's going to try and tire out Figueiredo. He's going to try and take him down. And then the one thing that's going to be on his side will be the leg kicks. I think he'll bring in the leg kicks a little bit more this time. And then his cardio is really good. So I feel like I'm going to go Moreno by decision. I feel like he's going to be able to wear him out, steal the middle rounds. I think Figueiredo will get 1 and 5. And then I think Moreno is going to get 2, 3, and 4.
Brandon?
I picked Moreno the first time. I picked Moreno the second time and knew like it should have been the first time. Like I said, I think everything that Dan said, I think Figueiredo is going to come out strong, like he always does. But the thing is too, like you want to say with Adesanya, you think he gets tired as the rounds go on. I think the same thing with Figueiredo. Reason being because he's a power puncher. He tries to throw everything he's got in there, and he tries to finish you. I think Moreno has more combinations with his boxing. I think if he does that a little bit better than he did the last time, I think he could get the finish. Because I think we talked about in the last fight. I think Moreno was only throwing maybe 2 punch combinations, but I think if he would have added that third one, he could have caught Figueiredo, but he just didn't do that. So hopefully maybe him and his coaches, they saw that, and maybe now he can instead of doing 3, maybe he does 4. Because maybe hopefully like Figueiredo was watching the tape and he said, all right, you know what? I was hoping for those 2. He might throw a third, but hey, if you throw that 4th one or that 5th one in, he might be able to catch him. But I think Moreno will take it. I think it's still going to be another exciting fight. And that's it. I just say and new.
And while we're rebutting before I get to Tim, I would say the same thing. Figueiredo threw 1 punch, 1 punch, 1 punch, 1 leg kick. He was trying to take his head off every single time. He throws a combo that just what's Moreno going to do. Tim, go ahead.
This is a really fun fight to pick. There's not a bad pick in this fight at all. So even if I pick somebody else, I'm not disagreeing with anybody. But Figueiredo really does remind me. He
what
dashes
side of the
in.
Picket fence you on, Tim?
Hey, now, boys. Just give me a minute here. So Figueiredo really, he dashes in for massive strikes. He's throwing haymakers continuously. When he misses, he's so far out of position, and that's when Moreno had his best shots. He reminds me of Takanori Gomi so much, right? Of like Takanori would absolutely like decapitate guys, or he missed, right? That's the exact same flaws that Figueiredo has. Is when he throws those massive haymakers, if you step out of the way or you dodge the first one, there's usually not much coming behind it because he committed 100% of his body to that one strike. Now, Moreno had most of his success on either the counter or midway through an exchange. If he were able to do what he did against Jussier Formiga, he can win this fight, which is that he mixed up kicks, he mixed up strikes, he played on the counter, he also had clinching and takedowns. One of the weird things is he never fought like he did against Moreno, I'm talking about, against Jussier Formiga. He didn't fight like that against Figueiredo for whatever reason. Not only that, Formiga did actually lay the groundwork of, if you want to beat Figueiredo, this is what you need to do, which is close the distance on the strikes, go for takedowns, mix the clinching in, and just try to have top control. If Moreno follows that game plan, he can absolutely win this fight. I don't know why he didn't do that in the first fight because he had the opportunity. Given all that, I'm still going to pick Figueiredo. I like Davison. I like the God of War kid. I like his bison. I like everything about this man. And because I like his Takanori Gomi decapitation style, he's a Mortal Kombat character. And for that, I'm going to pick him to win this fight by decapitation officially.
Go ahead, Dan. Everybody's else got a rebuttal. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out the fact that it's been known that Figueiredo, he doesn't put his hands up. He just doesn't block anything. He just leaves his hand down to the ground. I just don't like that. And in a fight like this, I feel like he's going to take a lot of damage as he's going to try and put out a lot of damage. So I just feel like...
Do you think that's because at that weight class, he just doesn't feel anybody can hurt him?
I feel like that's the truth, because he still does it. That's what happened in this fight. He took a lot of damage because his hands were down, and then Moreno was just, like you said, he was just countering and then having his way with them. He didn't have as many strikes as Figueiredo, but he took more damage, I felt like, than Moreno did. And I feel like if he keeps doing it, one small mistake that he makes, he's going to get knocked out or knocked down.
I'll also say real quick before we move on about this one, it also depends who the ref is. Because if it's a quick stop ref, we saw in that first fight, there was a couple times, especially early, where Moreno was really badly hurt from some of those shots that Figueiredo was throwing, where the ref gave him some leeway to kind of like hold on, curl up, get the fight on the ground, kind of slow the fight down. If it's one of those situations where somebody gets hit hard and stopped right away, Figueiredo could walk off even easier. So I will throw that out there too. It also depends on the ref. If it's a ref that lets him fight, goes in deep waters, maybe Moreno can pull it out. But if it's an early stoppage, I'm going 100% Figueiredo, and that's why that's my pick. It's not a main event, but it is 5 rounds. It's been pushed around a little bit. Leon Edwards back in the cage against Nate Diaz. On a quick side note, once almost thought impossible, Dana White now thinks Nick Diaz could be back in the cage before the end of the year. So don't want to get our hopes up. You know, I'm not going to go. I'm already gray and old, but I'm not going to get gray and old waiting for Nick Diaz to get back in the cage. Man's almost as old as I am. But that said, Nate Diaz back in the cage against Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards didn't look overall that impressive against Bilal Muhammad, but, you know, he did what he needed to do. And then, of course, the whole eye poke situation and everything else that went along with that. Nate Diaz hasn't looked that great his last few fights. Anything can happen in this one. Is Leon Edwards next for the title? Is he not? Who to start with this one? Tim, go ahead.
What's the wrestling term where the old man loses to the young guy? It's getting him over
passing the torch.
Right? Passing the torch. Yeah, I think this is one of those matches where the UFC really wanted to push Leon Edwards, and they found the worst style to make sure that Nate Diaz loses. Nate Diaz is a guy who has a lot of tissue under his eye, so he gets cut in every match. He got cut in every match in the last 5 years. So they set him up with a guy who does really good clinch elbows. Like, he cuts everybody he fights. He cut Donald Cerrone in the clinch. He cut RDA in the clinch. I think if you want to see what this fight's going to look like, it's essentially the RDA versus Leon Edwards fight, where it's 2 southpaws. One guy's a little bit more of a volume striker, and the other guy uses a clinch and inside elbows to counter that. Leon Edwards, this is his fight. This is absolutely a great winnable fight for him. I think he takes it probably by 3rd round doctor stoppage due to cut. I can't see Leon losing this one.
I have a hard time seeing this Nate Diaz getting stopped. But Dan, what do you think?
I'm going to keep it short. I think it's going to be Leon Edwards. Nate Diaz, he doesn't block his shots either. That's why he takes so much damage. What he's going to try and do is he's going to try and talk trash, get in psychologically to Leon Edwards. I don't think it's going to work. I think Edwards is just going to block it out. He's going to try and take him down, hit him. And then I don't think he's going to get the stoppage, even though I think it's going to be a lot of damage. But I just feel like in a lot of fights, Edwards wins by decision.
Brandon, if it's a stoppage, I have a hard time. I don't know. I heard both of them, but I don't see Diaz getting stopped other than a doctor like against Masvidal. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I say it would be. Like I said, man, like Nate, like both Diaz brothers have a lot of scar tissue built up. So I'm saying, man, you get him cut open, he's gushing blood, doctor can come in and stop it. But I have Leon Edwards winning this basically easily, man. I don't think Nate Diaz is gonna have anything to offer him. Saying it's gonna start standing up. I mean, usually Nate Diaz is the longer fighter, but I want to say that Edwards is long as well. So I mean, I think he's gonna neutralize him there. Diaz maybe still could be the better boxer, but I want to say that Edwards does more value than usually Diaz. Diaz is like a one jab or a jab cross guy. and that's it. While Edwards, he's gonna give you 2, 3, 4 punches, and like Tim said, he'll get you with the clinch, throw some elbows on you, call it a day.
Yeah, I'm picking Edwards too, only because of the whole Masvidal situation. I mean, it's not. Look, Diaz is no stranger to long layoffs. After the Conor fight, it was 3 years before he stepped in the cage against Anthony Pettis. It's been a year and a half since he fought Masvidal. Diaz is used to layoffs because he just stays. Both Diaz's stay active, doing all kinds of Ironman things and all kinds of like grappling things, so they're not out of shape ever. With that said, I think Leon Edwards has more tools in the shed, to borrow a phrase from Tim. I think he can beat you so many ways. He's very underappreciated in that division. Some of it's his own fault. Obviously COVID wasn't his fault, but the fights after that were scheduled, not scheduled. I still want to see him and Chimaev fight at some point. But Chimaev's going to definitely have to win a few fights before he was even in that conversation again if Edwards wins on Saturday. But I'm taking Leon Edwards. I think he just has more tools. The kicks, especially, like, he doesn't just need to throw hands. He can kick you from a distance. And as long as he keeps his fingers in his gloves and doesn't like poke somebody again, I think it's going to be a clean victory for Leon Edwards. All right, this is the point of the show where we go around and kick it around, let everybody make a fight that we need to pay attention to. We'll start with our guests first, mainly because we already know Brandon's picking Joanne Calderon. But we'll start with our guests first. Dan, go ahead and get it started. What fight are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Erik Anders and Darren Stewart. As you know, they're on the same card as Edwards and Muhammad, where they had the eye poke. On this one, it was the legal knee that was accidental. Erik Anders was dominating that fight. He was trying to guess which way Stewart was going. I
thought it was pretty intentional, but
yeah, he thought he was going down, and he wound up going up. He caught him, but I just feel like it's going to be a little bit of the same as the first fight, where Erik Anders dominated. I think Darren Stewart, his way to win this would be to keep the distance, to keep it standing up, move around. The longer the fight goes, the more Anders slows down because he gets a little bit tired. Stewart has a really good cardio, and he's really good with throwing punches, jabs, and then just avoiding the power shots. But Anders is going to come in. He's going to exploit the weakness once again, which is the clinch. For some reason, Darren Stewart's bad in the clinch. He just throws wild like elbows, wild knees, and then he usually gets countered and thrown down for it. And then once he gets thrown down, Anders is going to have his way and just wear him out on the ground. And I think he's going to get a first or second round knockout.
So you're picking Anders?
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, I do like Anders. Sometimes he struggles with the low kicks, but I like Anders in this fight as well for the same reasons. I'm just like, I think he's going to outpace him over the 3 rounds, but it'll be a fun banger of a fight at least. Even if I'm wrong, I'm totally okay with that.
What fight are you looking forward to on this card?
Oh, that's what you were asking. Oh, it's the Damian Maia Muhammad fight. We never know which Damian Maia fight will be the retirement, but he's a guy who's been in the UFC since 2007. He submitted Chael Sonnen. He submitted Carlos Condit. He bombed the UFC when it went to Abu Dhabi the first time. All sorts of like weird things have happened through this man's career. Nate Marquardt, my favorite memory of him is when he went to kick Nate Marquardt and Nate just like punched him right out of the air like he was a fly. So I'm going to say Damian Maia wins this fight by rear naked choke or by triangle choke, and then he retires and sails off into the sunset happily.
That's going to be interesting. I don't know if I agree with that one, just because, he looked like Gilbert Burns just ran right through him. And Bilal Muhammad, for all intents and purposes, is on his way up the food chain. So we'll see. Muhammad unfortunately had this situation with Leon Edwards last time. I think it's unfortunate Edwards didn't want to give him another chance, especially since they're fighting on the same card. So, all right. Brandon, what's your pick? We're going to act surprised.
You know what it is, man. Murphy versus Calderwood. I got my girl, Bad Mofo JoJo. Joanne Calderwood, been a fan of hers since her Invicta days. Girl's just been training, she's been changing up her game. Like I said, I think we all know that. To me, she's the better striker than Murphy. I think Murphy maybe does have the better ground game, but the thing is, though, that Joanne Calderwood can attack off her back. She can throw submissions. She can throw her elbows. I think Joanne Calderwood deserved the title shot beforehand, but then, Valentina got sick or hurt, and so she took that fight with Maia. in which it didn't go her way. So I think she just got something to prove that she deserves the next title shot.
I'm really looking forward to that fight, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if Murphy pulls off the knockout. I also wouldn't be surprised if JoJo grinds her out and gets a submission or a win. I think it can go either way, and that's one of the fights I'm actually really looking forward to. My pick of the night is actually Jamal Hill, but I'm scared because Paul Craig looked great against Shogun, but it's Shogun at an age, where you're like, okay, he's kind of getting up there. He looked great against, I'm going to butcher his name, but Antigulov with that submission on the Whitaker fight against Till last year. But Jamal Hill has looked great against St. Preux. He looked great against Stasic. He looked great on the Contender Series where he came out and just knocked out Popik. And then you go on to the regional scene with like UFC vets against Daquan Townsend. He beat. He's been rolling. He's been moving up the food chain very quickly. Only 8-0 considering he's 30 years old already. But the biggest question with Jamal Hill isn't whether he can get it done in the cage. It's just what kind of condition is he in after having such a tough battle with COVID and some other things that he's dealt with in this last year. You see it with Chimaev. Sometimes these fighters bounce back quickly. Sometimes they don't. Jamal Hill has been out for a lengthy bit of time. He was supposed to fight last year. His fight got scrapped. He's finally back in action against a very tough opponent in Paul Craig. But I'm picking Jamal Hill. I think he has all the tools. I think he's one of the most elite prospects in the division if he can stay healthy. I don't like his height, 6'4", his length at 205 pounds. He makes a problem for almost anybody in that division. So it's going to be interesting. And his power. I mean, he has power for days. So we'll see what happens. Only 8 fights in his career. It's kind of hard to say, but Paul Craig's going to be a great test for him. And I think Jamal Hill's going to come out the other side of that one. Gentlemen, anything else you want to talk about on that card? Some great fights. Dawodu's back in action. Chase Hooper's back in action. Chase Hooper's such a hard guy to really nail down because he looked so good. And then once he was exposed and then he had the draw. Tim, what are your thoughts on the rest of this card?
No, Hakeem Dawodu is a guy that I got my eye on. I met him at a Muay Thai gym by accident, and then I was like, "Holy shit, you're in a different class than I am," and that makes sense. So we're both from Calgary originally, but yeah, he's a guy to keep my eye on. He struggles a little bit on the inside and exchanges, but at range, his Muay Thai is really good. I think you can see him probably entering the top 5 in the next 2 years.
Dan, what do you think about the rest of this card?
I've been intrigued with the Drew Dober Brad Riddell fight because I think it's going to be a fight that could be a sleeper for Friday night because I think it's going to be standing up and they're just going to trade bombs all night.
I know, Brandon, you were high on Drew Dober.
Yep.
Any thoughts on the rest of this card?
Nah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited for the fights. Like say Dan, man, he saw my other fight that I was interested in saying the Drew Dober Riddell fight. I think Drew Dober's going to bounce back, take care of business, and get that hand raised. But like I said, man, good fights overall. Like I said, should be a good night. Too bad I kind of won't be able to really watch the prelims, but I'll be there for the main card though.
Well, I'll get caught up by next week. One of the fight, and I'm very intrigued. So Alexis Davis, right? She came out. She'd been struggling for a while, and then she comes out last fight and looks like a world-class champion all over again. Like against Mazo, everybody was picking against her. She came out and looked fantastic, controlled that fight for 3 rounds. So I'm interested to see against another tough opponent in Kianzad what happens with Alexis Davis. So there's definitely some good stuff. I thought, Brandon was the king of the ladies fight, but here I am talking about a couple different things. So,
hey man, I love me some Alexis Davis. I'm a big fan of hers as well. Like I was saying, that was the other fight I was thinking about taking, but I had to go with my girl Joanne Calderwood first because she's number 1. But I really want to say I think Davis is going to take this one as well. I think Kizat is a tough lady. Like saying she's tough, she could take a punch, But I just think Alexis Davis has more tools, and I definitely think they're way sharper.
All right, gentlemen, I know this is the part of the show you've been waiting for. Tim, I'll let you go first. Go ahead and plug Calf Kick Sports. Tell them why they should watch.
That's right, Calf Kick Sports. We're going to be breaking down the 3 main fights. We'll do about a 30-minute piece on each one. So if you're really into like the technical breakdown of like pacing on 1-2s or stuff like that, that's what we're really going to be covering. Check out my Twitter, Tim Wheaton MMA, or Calf Kick Sports on Instagram. It'll have all the links you need from there.
Of course, in the show notes as well. Dan, tell them about Caqe My IQ in case they haven't been paying attention for the last 3 visits.
On Cage My IQ, it's me, it's my co-host Miles. We usually go on every Monday where we recap the UFC fight card. We go into detail just with the main card. It usually hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours when we get going on it. So we go detail with that. And then every Thursday, me and my other buddy Jim, we preview the next card, and we usually upload it to YouTube. And then I have a bunch of interviews that I do. I just did one with Kyle Phillips, and then this week I got Joshua Pasillo of One Championship, the strawweight champion. I got that later this week, so you can check all that out on the YouTube channel.
Awesome. I'm going to go check out that Kyle Phillips one. I didn't know you did that one. I'm going to check that one out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have sucked up an hour and a half of your time, and we appreciate it. Make sure you check out the promo code above, Prize Fighter. I thought about naming this episode "Fuck You, Pay Me," but I didn't know if YouTube would allow that. So it's just called something to do with Prize Fighter. I'll come up with the title in a little bit. Actually, I think I did come up with the title. Oh yeah, we get paid to fight. That sounds a lot cleaner than "Fuck You, Pay Me." But I don't know. I thought about clickbaiting it a little bit and see what happens. But check out artofmma.com, brand new website. Not a brand new website, but a very new redesign. So check it out. Let me know in the feedback in the comments how you like it. Make sure you go to artofmma.com/shop. We're going to hurry up and finish because Tim has had battling with that light in his eyes. Guys, you got anything else to add before we get out of here?
Hey, just to the people. Oh, I was gonna say, hey, just to the people, man. In case you guys don't know, remember me and Mike, we always talk about wrestling. Well, this Saturday, your boy, since nobody wants to fight me in the kickboxing ring, I'm actually gonna have a pro wrestling match this Saturday, South River, New Jersey, for UWA Elite. I gotta go chin check some fool who was talking some smack. So your boy will be wrestling, and then that way I can go watch the fights later that night.
Yeah, definitely June 12th. Make sure you check out Brandon in action in the wrestling ring, knocking somebody's head off. If he ever needs an advocate, you know I'm here. But I'm thinking he's handling his own business just fine. So make sure you check that out. Hopefully all that stuff's online so we can all watch it. So Brandon, the Mechanic Cuttino, what's your wrestling name? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
So my wrestling
Blade, right?
when I used to wrestle, right, his name is Blade.
Okay, so you make sure you check out Blade, Brandon Cuttino, back in action. Check out his billboard in Atlantic City. He's a living legend. For Tim Wheaton, Dan Bakley, and Blade, I'm Mike Ginn. Thank you so much. This is another episode of Art of MMA, and we're out.